everybody, and welcome back to Emerald Luxuries. I'm so glad that you're here, you found me, or that you keep coming back and watching my videos. Truly do appreciate it. You have no idea. But with that being said, let's get started with today's video. In today's video, I am going to show you how I do a fabric tumbler. And we'll just go through all of the steps, how you seal it, how you put epoxy on it, and then the final result. So sit back and enjoy watching me show you what I'm doing. Thanks for watching. Hi everybody. For today's video, we are going to be doing a fabric tumbler. Now, I am going to run through a list of supplies before we get started. So the first and most important thing you're going to want is a tumbler. Make the tumbler any size that you want. This is a 20-ounce skinny that I got from Maker Flow Crafts. I also have this cup cradle that I got from Amazon. I will try to make sure and put all of the links that I have in the description below. So you have that. I have a 80 grit sanding block. And so what the first thing you want to do so that your glue has something to hold on to is sand down your tumbler. And so I've already done that step. And then what you want to do is you want to take either 91 or 99% rubbing alcohol, which is what is in this. I can't remember which strength it is, but it's one of those two. And to make it easier for me to use, I just put it in this spray bottle that I got from the Dollar Tree. You just spray that on there, which is this step I've also already done, and then rub it down nice so that it's nice and clean, doesn't have any fingerprints, any sanding dust, any debris on it. Now, you're also going to want to have some sort of sealer. You can either use Mod Podge, a polyurethane, something that is going to seal your fabric onto the cup really good. I use a combination. My first layer I use Mod Podge, and then the next 2 layers, because you want at least 3 layers of sealant on this. The next 2 I actually use this urethane water-based sealer. You want to make sure that it's water-based and not oil-based, because if you use oil-based, it's going to repel the epoxy. You also want it to be clear. It doesn't have to be gloss, but you do want it to be clear so that when it dries clear. It doesn't have to be exterior. It can also be interior. Some people will use polyurethane, stuff like that. Any of these, I got this at, I believe, Home Depot quite a while ago, and I've barely made a dent in it, and I've made probably 50 or 60 fabric tumblers. So this stuff will last a very, very long time. Next, you want to have a nice, soft, fluffy brush. I got these on Amazon. They're just makeup brushes, and for the full set of like 7 to 10 different size and shape brushes was less than $10 each. You can also get the Wet n Wild type at the Dollar Tree. I also have several of those. Any will work. For the finishing touches, I'm going to use some washi tape. I'm going to use blue and red because of the type of fabric that I have. I also got all of my washi tape from Amazon in sets. Up to you if you want to use a medicine cup. Sometimes I use this for my sealers, put it in there, and then use this on, the fluffy brush, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't even use a brush. I just use my hands, and I'll probably be doing a combination of that in today's video. Gloves, if you use your hands, I don't like the feel of all that gunk on my hands, so I will use gloves. You don't have to. This is up to you. Once you're using epoxy, yes, absolutely you have to have gloves. But for this first part, gloves are optional. And then finally, because I'm going to be using ribbon, I've got ribbon. This is cut to size. And you just tape measure it around and then cut it to however the length you need, length and size that you need. And then your fabric, also same thing. I got this and the ribbon, I believe, at Walmart. I think I just got a yard of this, or maybe it was in one of those little fat quarters edges. I can't remember, but I cut it down to size to fit my tumbler. Now what I did is I measured lengthwise, and I also measured the circumference and put my tape measure down and cut my fabric that way. So with all of that said, that's the basics that you'll need to get started with a fabric tumbler. And let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is take my Mod Podge and shake it up really well. And for this part, I actually will put it in the medicine cup and use my brushes. But yeah, you just take it, give it a nice generous coat. Only in one section for right now do you want this, because what I do is I put it on that section, and then let's see if I can get this without spilling it. And then I take my fabric and I lay it down right in the middle. Make sure it's straight as possible, and seal it down, getting all the wrinkles and bumps out. Now it's okay for it to overlap a little bit on the top like that, and on the bottom like that, because I'll show you how I get rid of that at the end. I use an edge trimmer that I also got from Amazon, Walmart, Amazon. I believe it was Amazon. But then what you want to do is you just want to go around the cup, making sure to get it all nice and sealed. And it's okay if it comes out. This is where gloves would come in handy, because it is going to seep through the fabric. So let me go ahead and put my gloves on so that my hands don't get all full of glue. And yeah, Mod Podge you can get anywhere. Amazon, craft store, Walmart, all wherever you can find crafts, you'll find Mod Podge. And yeah, the trick to fabric tumblers is you want them as sealed as you can get them. And the reason why is because if they're not sealed all the way, then the epoxy will seep through, and you'll have wet looking spots that look like they're wet, like they haven't dried, and that's the epoxy going through where there was no sealant. And that's why I always do at least 3 coats of whatever I'm doing, so that it gets nice and sealed, and that does not happen. As you can see how it's coming through, that's fine, because we're going to seal the top of this as well. It's not just going to be sealed on the inside of the cup. We're going to seal it on this part as well. And I always try to get the seam as good as I can. Some people will go along and then actually cut the little overlap off. I don't do that, but I will cut the bottom off, and you'll see how I do that in a little bit. So then once it's on there and pretty secure, then this is when I do my hands more than the brush. But I go on and I make sure that I have plenty on the cup. Oh, sorry, I'm getting out of focus and out of screen here. And then I just rub it around the whole cup, working it in, making sure that it gets a nice generous coat on it. And this is another reason why I wear gloves, because I end up making a mess of everything. And you want to kind of make sure there's no wrinkles, no bubbles, no air pockets as you're going along as well. And any place you think doesn't have enough, go ahead. It's better to overseal than not have it sealed enough. And I just keep working it in, making sure it's on there, making sure it's on there tight. Don't worry about getting it on the inside, because you'll be washing the inside of these cups anyway towards the end. Make sure you don't have any little stragglers like that. I always just cut those off, or pull them off like I did in this instance. And you want to make sure you get the edges really well as well. And then what I do, once it's nice and good, has a nice good thick layer on there, I sit and let it dry. Now I want this to be thoroughly dry, so I don't wait just 20 or 30 minutes. I wait a couple of hours. So let's set it aside, and I will be back to show you what the next steps are. And this is what it looks like. You know, looks a little dull and white, but that's fine. Once it's done and you get the epoxy on there, it's going to dry clear. You get the epoxy on there and it'll shine right up. But we're going to set it here, and then, like I said, I will come back and I'll show you what the next steps are. See you soon. Hi there. It's been a couple of hours, and so what I did is I went along the edge and I cut off any of these little, like, fabric strings. I don't actually know what they're called, but, like, you know, the edges where it's been frayed. I cut all those off. And so now what you want to do, and it's very important that you do this step before your final sealant goes on it, because you want to make sure and seal in the fabric at the edges. So I just replaced the blade in my edge trimmer, and I got this on Amazon. It was very cheap. I guarantee there are better edge trimmers out there than this one. So do your research and try to get a good one. I'm going to replace this one soon because I don't like it. It's very, very wobbly because of, you know, the screws on the bottom stick up so it doesn't sit flat. So you have to like really hold it flat. Anyway, I digress. Let's go on here to this step. Oh, this is not very tight, but okay. So anyway, get it to where, you know, get your razor blade where you want it so you're not taking too much or too little off to your taste, and then just go around and trim off the edge of the fabric. And you can go around as many times as you need to. I usually go around about twice, because it doesn't always get it the first time. And I have mine set pretty low, so it's just a tiny, tiny little edge that comes off. Yeah, you push relative. It's harder than it is. It's harder to get the vinyl off than it is. Sorry, it's harder to get the fabric off by doing this than it is trying to trim off vinyl. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. So then you should have a nice edge along the side. And don't worry if it's not exactly straight. That's where the washi tape is going to come in at the very end. After a couple, maybe 1 or 2 coats of epoxy, that's when the washi tape will come in. But I do both the bottom and the top. Like I said, I go around at least twice. Sometimes I need more depending on how, how good the razor blade is on this, and how hard I'm pushing. All kinds of factors factor in as to how many times around I need to go. And what you'll see here in a minute is one of the reasons why we always, especially with fabric tumblers, we always want to do at least 2 to 3 coats of the sealer. Because if we just relied on this one, where is it? Right here. See how this is kind of not sealed down? If I was to go epoxy this now, epoxy would get down under that. It would cause a big wet splotch to make it look like it was wet, and it wouldn't seal properly. So it's very important that you get your fabric on here sealed as well as you possibly can. And like I said, that's why I do at least 2 or 3 coats of sealant. And again, it doesn't matter if this top part or bottom part is exactly 100% even, because I'm going to be fixing that up with the washi tape at the end. So now that you have it all, the rims cleaned up and nice and everything, we're going to go in with our second coat of sealant. And for the second coat, I actually am going to go ahead and use the Mod Podge again, instead of the urethane, just simply to get a really good seal along this edge and the bottom and the seam here. But basically, you're going to do exactly what you did the first time, with the exception of up here on the rim. You want to make sure that it gets very, very well sealed. And I just make sure and go along the top like this in one direction, and then I come and I do it in the next direction. Making sure that that top rim gets nice and sealed, because it's very, very important. You don't want to ruin the integrity of the cup by not having it sealed well at your edges. So I do that on that side, and then I do the same on the other side. And like I said, don't worry about getting it on the bottom or the inside rim of the cup, because we will be cleaning that up before the end of the tutorial. But same thing here, go up in one direction and then I come down on the other to make sure that that edge is nice and sealed. Once I do that, put my brush aside, and then I come and I do the same thing I did for the first layer, and just put it on here and make sure I get the whole thing nice and sealed again. By the time you're done sealing this, your fabric's no longer going to feel like fabric. It's going to feel almost like plastic, because you're going to have, you want that good of a seal to where it feels like it's a different substance. But that's all I do. I make sure there's no glomps, because even though it dries clear, if there's any clumps in it, or globs, it will dry with a glob there. So you want to make sure that all your globs, everything is nice and smooth. I go ahead and put it on my PVC holder, which I got the PVC pipe. I made the holders myself, got the PVC pipe at Home Depot, got those little, I don't even know what it's called, but it's a round thing there, and it's a separate screw-in washer there. I got all of that at Home Depot as well. Yep, and now we're just going to sit and let this dry again for about another 2 hours or so, and then I will come back and I will show you again what the next steps are. This is what it looks like so far. No real big globs anywhere, maybe a few here and there. As long as they're not like big, huge, big globs, it's not gonna be fine. Yep, so we'll let that dry, set it aside, let it dry, and I will come back with next steps. Hi everyone, and welcome back. It's been about two and a half hours since the last time I put the last coat of Mod Podge on here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the urethane, which I have inside here, but if you remember, it's the water-based Spar urethane in crystal clear gloss. Like I said earlier as well, gloss doesn't matter. Clear does. Make sure if you're going to use this to get the clear kind, because it'll dry clear. Otherwise, you're just going to ruin your look. But this time I am going to use my brush and just brush it on there. I'm going to put 2 coats of this on here. I'm going to put 1 coat on, let it dry fully, and then come back and put another coat on, and then it will be ready to put the epoxy on. So I'm only going to show you this first coat. Second coat's going to look exactly the same, but this way I've got actually 4 nice coats of sealer on, and that way the edges, all of it is going to be nice and sealed, and no epoxy is going to get up underneath the fabric to ruin the integrity of the cup. So Hi everybody. So this now has a coat of epoxy on it, and so I'm going to go ahead and do the next steps of putting the washi tape onto the tumbler. I've sanded it down, wiped it down to get all of the sanding dust, epoxy dust off of it, and so now we're ready to go. We don't have to worry about, you know, it looking a little dull. It will shine right back up under epoxy, and I'm not going to worry about it with this on it because this will cover up anything that's under it and you won't see that anyway. So let me get out my knife. I've got this one, my X-Acto knife. I love this thing. It's you know, it's hefty and I like that. I got it from Amazon in a kit, and it's called the Precision Craft Knife Kit. Whoops, there. Precision Craft Knife Kit. It's got all of these different blades in it, and it's also got, let me put that down so I don't cut myself. And it's got also these other two. This is just a normal X-Acto, which is fine. I mean, I use these all the time as well. And then it's got this hefty one. I didn't feel like changing the blades, so that's why I'm using this one, which I like it better anyway, so that's why I'm going to use it. Yeah, these are the different X-Acto knives that I use. So let's go ahead and get started and put this on. I think I'm going to do red down the seam line and then blue around the top and bottom rim. So let me just get this started. And it says easy as just putting it on and pulling it down. And don't worry about overlapping on the top. We'll cut that off. Just take it. And we'll see what it ends up looking like. Ugh. This is driving me crazy. And maybe it doesn't need this on the bottom, and I could have skipped this part, but I don't know. I want it on there, so I'm going to put it on there. And then you can see where this bunches up here. I'm going to try to make sure it doesn't look like that when we go to put epoxy on it. Now on the top one, I'm going around to where there's only a little tiny bit of that top rim exposed. Again, just going around making sure that none of it bunches up. And there you go. And I probably will put a urethane sealer on this so that it doesn't lift under the epoxy, and then I'll have to sand it down a ton more. And also it will help keep these bubbles down because it's not staying. But yeah, that's all there is for this step. I'm going to put some more epoxy on it, maybe 1 to 2 coats. And then probably the next time you see this, it will be finished and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody and welcome back. Here I am to show you the final results of the fabric tumbler, and here it is. It turned out really well for what it is. I personally don't like it. My own fault. There were several mistakes that I made with finishing up this tumbler. Like, I didn't sand it well enough, so on where the washi tape is, you can see bumps and stuff, and that's because I didn't get it smooth enough. My fault. The bottom, I forgot to do anything at all with the bottom. So it's just plain silver. I was going to paint it red or paint it blue. I can't remember what I decided I was going to try to do. Didn't happen. But the good news with this is my sister runs and owns a fireworks stand, and she absolutely loves it. So I'm going to gift this to her for the fireworks season. Now, by the time you're seeing this video, it's already very, very close to 4th of July, so not sure if you want to repeat this or take inspiration for this. You'd be able to get it done by 4th of July. However, there's always Labor Day, there's Flag Day, there's all kinds of, oh, I guess Flag Day is in June, so never mind, that won't work. Or is it in July? I don't even remember when Flag Day is, but there's several holidays that Americana type design would work for. So, you know, use this, take inspiration from this, whatever you want to do, and enjoy it. But it doesn't look bad. It's just not what I had envisioned. And again, thanks for watching, and this is what it looks like. Thank you. Have a happy 4th.